It is an absolute pleasure and an honor to have Jennah-Louise Salked join us. Jennah-Louise has been a friend and a mentor and a relationship that was developed through COVID across continents. And Jennah-Louise is a mindset coach. She does empowerment mentoring for the youth, and she is also the host of the To Be Human podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Jennah-Louise.
Thank you, beautiful Kerry. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, it is. It really is just so exciting. We met through a virtual mastermind group that we had both seen, I think, Suri Lindley on stage at UPW and had a shared passion for her beautiful spirit and decided to sign up for a mastermind group. And one of the things that I remember when I first met you, this is just going off script completely, we are in this together, was literally the light and the smile that you bring to the virtual Zoom room and your intrinsic ability to just inspire and motivate others. So it really is just a pleasure to have you here. And one of the things that I thought about when we have had different group sessions and even accountability partnerships offline together was just your communication style. And it's a style that I've observed as someone who is very present. You are 100% listening. When you're not clear, you kind of replay back. And even when stakes are high or there's strong emotion, I feel like you stay like very true and authentic. So I would love to start with just a little bit about you and your just personal background, and then we'll talk more about competition, endurance, your mindset, and all different things communication. So tell us a little bit about you.
Well, firstly, Kerry, thank you so much for the beautiful words. It's so lovely to hear that from you because it's certainly my intention in terms of communication with people. So I am from Australia, and what do I do now? So basically, my present life is being a mindset coach to high achievers. And in that, I help them eliminate stress so that they can achieve more, which can, to the high achiever, seem quite contradictory, but I assure you it's not. I am the host of the To Be Human podcast, and that's sort of like a new feat for me at the moment. And for me, the purpose behind that is to humanize high performers. I think that's really important in this day and age when we can be looking up to people and thinking that people that are successful have something that we don't. So just being able to sort of bring it back down to the human level so people can be inspired by that. So that they can expand their potential, which is certainly something that I'm very passionate about in my life. And I also help out with youth, and I've done that for quite a lot of years. I remember I'm 32 now, but when I was 18, I did my first trip overseas to Kenya to work with youth over there. And it was just such a beautiful experience for me. And I'm really grateful for it because it kind of showed me, what it was to be human and in that sense of fulfillment in the contribution. And since then, it's fueled me to different parts of Australia and around the world in contributing to empowering youth and also women. So that's, I guess, sort of a bit of a background for me.
Yeah, definitely. I remember some of the stories, and also one other thing that stood out is your crazy adventure races and endurance, which I don't know a whole lot about. Uh, the types of real long treks that you've done, but I'd love to learn just how you got into endurance sports and some of the examples.
So that's an interesting one. And I have been reflecting on that. And it kind of, the story gets deeper and deeper every time I reflect. And I remember when I was younger, particularly in my teens, I was an only child living with a single mother, and we started to have some conflict with each other. And I remember to sort of, I suppose, escape that conflict, I would go for runs. I would go for long runs. And, this is something that I can be aware of now. I certainly wasn't aware of this sort of up until probably the last year, but it started filtering into other aspects of my life. And I was really pulled to that endurance because I suppose I got that sense of pleasure and freedom from it.
Mm.
And sort of, I guess, more towards my later 20s, I started doing military inspired endurance events, so 24-hour events. And there was just something so deep about really truly getting to know myself and what I was capable of. And particularly being a part of a team, it was just something that continues to pull me. And in the last couple of years, I've got into ultramarathon running, and I've been doing multi-stage ultramarathon running, which is basically, for example, you could run for a period of 5 days, and it would add up to about 250 kilometers. And what really pulls me to that is the human connection that comes with that. And you really develop deep friendships and relationships over that time. And I suppose that's sort of what it started out as, I suppose, a form of escapism and a sense of freedom, but now it's developed into something deeper, which is that sort of human connection aspect.
So beautiful. I love that. And I think the relationships, there's a story, I'm sure, behind every race. I know in my own experience, it was after I lost my father and my brother within 2 weeks that I signed up for my first marathon. And it really was a place to just be with myself. And sometimes that's a scary place to be in your own head, with your thoughts. And I have a fabulous running partner, Suzanne, that I've done all my marathons with. But there was so many other runs that you'd be alone, and you have to be out there. So what I love in what your story is that it's being with yourself in your own head, but it's also forming those bonds, those relationships, the story that comes with all the different types of endurance events. And now, selfishly, I'm going to ask because I'm doing a half Ironman in Atlantic City, but then I've signed up for my first full Ironman in November, and I've never done more than, let's say, a 4 or on a bad marathon maybe 5 hours. But I'm so curious. For starting with your inner voice and the communication that you have to have even within yourself to make sure that you are being realistic, but yet keeping yourself grounded and rooted in where you want to be. What are some of the things that you tell yourself, or what goes through your mind when you're in those higher distance events?
I think it's changed for me. I think, I grew up from a poor background, and my sense of achievement when I was younger was really driven by the need to belong and to fit in. And I didn't do that through growing up poor. And it was my sense of achievement that got me into the groups that I wouldn't be in. So I think for a lot of my life, that really subconsciously drove me. And I think in the last couple of years that I've really done deep self-development work, that I've been able to make that transition from, it being a push from a belief of inadequacy to now like a pull of growth and expanding my potential. So I think, it used to kind of be like, I got to get this done. And by no means like that got the job done. But I think what I realized, it came from a very stressful place, and it wasn't good for my health. It may have got me to achievement, but it wasn't good for my health. And so now I think going into endurance events, it's the excitement and gratitude and the privilege to be able to do something like that. Like, this is a choice that I am making. And so it's about leaning into that choice and being really true to your own word and knowing what you're capable of. And I think it's also the kindness that comes with that I think I've learned. It's, to not be hard on yourself. You're doing a difficult thing, and to be able to have that space. And even if it's in endurance events, even if it's just taking a few minutes to just kind of reset, has been really powerful for me. But I think it's that excitement and that gratitude that's truly pulling me now. And I deeply believe, COVID's been a little difficult here in Australia. We haven't had the events on that we normally would, or I wouldn't be, traveling overseas like I normally would. But I did a 100-kilometer single stage run in the Blue Mountains, west of Sydney, if anyone knows Australia, which is really, really beautiful part of Australia, a few months ago. And that was sort of the first event that I've done going in with more of that mindset. And it was really different for me. And it was so much more of a beautiful and connecting experience, not only with myself and others, but with like life and nature. This 100-kilometer run went, for me, well into the night. And there were very, very challenging times in that, times where I was just, it was sub-zero degrees. I was absolutely freezing. I spent most of the time on my own. I didn't run with anyone. And it was really challenging. But, in those moments, instead of being like, push and get it done, I kind of just like was softer with myself. And I was like, look up at the stars. Like, how often do you look up the stars and really be present and really appreciate the beauty that life has to offer, and hear the beautiful sounds at night that I wouldn't normally hear? Or someone would run past me, instead of feeling inadequate, like I'm not doing enough, it's just like I would thank them for revealing within myself, maybe I can push a little harder. And like that's like, I would thank the competitiveness in that sense. Whereas I think my past self would be down on myself and be hard on myself. And I think I'm truly realizing that I can achieve a lot more by being kinder to myself.
What a beautiful state. I mean, that gratitude and even just the presence to notice
Mm.
the sky or to notice, look around, and that competitiveness is actually a gift that's going to help pull you. And what a beautiful mindset to look at. And thank you for sharing that, because it's truly a different way of thinking. But also, what I'm hearing is the conversation in your head is so much kinder, to use your words. So thank you for sharing that. That's a really amazing best practice. And, I also see, and I'm curious how you see this sometimes in our day, and I deal a lot with corporate America where people have deadlines and deliverables, and right now the volume of work, and it's a new normal. It's not, you can no longer look at the way life was. It's starting from today is a new day, and how will we move through it? But there's this focus on, you know, drive and deliverables and that push, that I'd love to know any best practices just in your day to day, even from getting things done from a work perspective outside of endurance sports, that you have been able to use that same, mindset.
I think drive is a beautiful thing. I worked in, corporate Australia for quite a few years. I studied law and international politics and went into corporate work. I didn't last long, but I definitely understand that headspace of, I even remember I had a job where it was, I think, like an 8 to 5 job, and I would leave literally at like 5:01, and I got in a lot of trouble for it. So I certainly understand the pressures of it. I think for me now, like I'm a very, like I work a lot. I think I'm very productive, but I work on the right things. And I know this is hard working for people because you got to do what you got to do. But, for me, I guess I would go the layer deeper and truly ask yourself, is this what you're wanting to do? And, why are you doing this? Because I think, yeah, drive is beautiful if you're being pulled. And I think, this is what I sort of referred to earlier. If you're being pushed by something and it's highly stressful, like I certainly would never encourage that. I think it's being pulled by something, what is the goal that is pulling you, that, you're excited to be busy and have, the demands of a job or a role because, you're creating something that you think is worthwhile and you've got purpose, and, maybe that's contributing to society in a positive way. I think that's a very different state to just being really busy and working hard because you got to put dinner on the table. So I think I would always go the layer deeper to truly understand why you are in the position that you're in, and to understand that, there are choices. And if you're not enjoying where you are, to really figure out options as to what you can do with that. And that doesn't always mean quitting your job, but it may mean to be able to expand options within your role, to be able to feel more pulled by what you do rather than pushed and it's just something you have to do.
Yes, so well said. The values kind of conversation I hear in there too. And it's, if you value achievement and you value results, and you find purpose in that meaning of moving initiatives forward, then that's wonderful. And I also think, going back to the gratitude, and I know you and I have had this conversation quite a bit, trading, you know, uh, focus of fear to more appreciation, or like, when you're shining the light on things that are wrong, we really need to shift to gratitude and find what we appreciate in the moment. So what is it about your current role that you do appreciate, whether it's the people, but it's the perspective. And I think that piece of what I've learned through you, even in some of the questions when we were inside breakout groups, where you'll say, like, Carrie, what is the resistance? In that layer deeper, as a mindset coach and someone that's really looking to say, okay, how do we have the best mental game in our daily lives, is really, really important. So thank you for sharing that. I'm curious about your own level of resistance, right now. What's happening in your world? What are you working on? Because I think we all have um, seasons with our mindset, and when it comes to communication, we need to have some discipline around how we're working with others. And so I'm curious, from a communication lens, what are some of the things that you've resisted, that you've overcome, or you've grown and leveraged your own personal growth?
Do you mean in relation to communication with people or
Yeah, with others, like in
with
relationships.
others?
Yeah.
I think my biggest life lesson will always be my relationship with my mother. And I think that's been really, really present lately. Is I feel like I have a good hand on everything I have in my life. I'm a mindset coach. I'm all about, perception is what creates your reality. And I'm very aware throughout my day to day. And I find it's, my most personal relationship that I have is the hardest relationship that I have. And I find, I don't always show up how I would love to show up. So I think in that, what I've really realized is to have, as you sort of said at the start, Kerry, to have that level of presence with someone that you don't always see eye to eye with, and to truly listen to them. Because I think, in relationships, we can have a tendency to really try and always get our point across. And, because we think we're right and we're truly not listening to the other side of things. And we don't always have to agree, but I think there is so much beauty and healing and power of communication in listening rather than telling.
Mm.
So I've certainly learned that. And I think it's also to bring love and compassion as much as you can. And that's been a really beautiful lesson for me recently is, instead of bringing judgment and thinking that you're always got the right answer, to just, as I said, to listen and bring that love and compassion, and to really understand that everybody has a story, and there is a reason as to why everyone is in the place that they're in at the moment. And, I'm very grateful I feel like I have, a very well developed sense of self and headspace. But that doesn't mean that, I should be judging others if I feel like they may not. And so, yeah, I think my one of the most powerful lessons I've learned recently is, in any form of relationship where you have that resistance, where you have, an element of conflict or disharmony, to really be able to lean in, to really listen to what they're saying, because sometimes that can be the healing itself, is just to let someone speak and to bring that unconditional love and compassion.
Yes, it's almost to say that you're separating your own needs and real, you know, I don't want to say, I'm trying to think of the word, but you're separating even your ego. You're separating yourself to try to truly understand. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that speaks volumes in communication. When someone feels seen and someone feels heard, you open up dialogue, and that compassion and love just adds another dimension. So thank you for sharing that. What are some of your favorite, you know, inner voice quotes or a mantra in those moments of self-compassion, and even in thinking about how you're approaching endurance sports?
Um, you know, they're all different, I suppose. It's probably clear I'm quite multifaceted. I think in terms of, let's say, life in general, one of my most favorite quotes is by a man called Peter Kern. And he says, life will present you with people and circumstances to reveal where you are not free. And I genuinely use that every single day. At any point in my life throughout the day that I feel a level of the resistance that you're talking about, Kerry, or some form of upset, I'll ask, where am I not free? Like, how can I take power back over this situation and change my perspective and how I am perceiving this situation? And that has been incredibly empowering for me. I think in terms of endurance mindset, it's a little different. Something that I do change. And I think, as you would understand, Kerry, throughout each endurance event, you evolve and grow so deeply. And that's such a large purpose of why we do these things. And in the recent 100-kilometer run that I did, it was really simple. I just checked in with me, I checked in with the people around me, and I checked in with nature. So at any point that I was really struggling with anything, I'd be like, okay, check in with me. I'm good. I'm going to recenter myself. I'm going to be appreciative and grateful for the beautiful people around me that are doing such a wonderful thing in their lives and trying to better themselves. And I'm going to look outwards to nature and really be present, as I sort of shared before, and have that element of appreciation for life in general that I may not have in my day to day. And that really helped me. Like that, I was solid in that mindset. And I think sometimes we can mistake these forms of mindsets to not be as powerful as something that's just like head down and get it done. And of course, there's a place for that. I do use that as well. But I'm finding throughout my journey that, being a little softer with myself is sort of where I'm at right now. And, I might go David Goggins style again at some point. I certainly did that in my first ultra marathon, I think, was 350 kilometers over like 7 days or something. And, I was full David Goggins, but I also, had a lot of stress in my life and a lot of pressure in my life. And I got injured, and I don't think that I showed up to the best of my ability. So I think there is an element of intuition that comes into play with this that I think, you have to be really honest with yourself about what works for you personally.
Yes, that's great. And I laugh because there's been times where I can't remember a marathon that I've ever run that I didn't really work to say thank you to every single volunteer. And
Well,
the people that are managing the streets, to the volunteers giving out water. And I don't know how I learned, or I thought of it, because someone had, I think, said to me one time, always thank the people, always thank the people. And I took it to the point of like every person, and it really keeps you in that state of gratitude and appreciation. And I know I've said that before, but there's many times that you can focus on, oh my goodness, I think my knee hurts, or oh, I'm tired, I might be dehydrated, whatever it may be. And that's what you feel and you find. And so trying to be intentional with what you're focusing on, and those three simple check-ins: how am I, how am I doing, how are the people, how is the nature, is really a great technique. And I would say that could apply to many people in many different environments. Substitute your three, but it really,
and particularly in the endurance mindset, you do watch people, and going in with that hard style, like that can blow you up quick and you can get injured really easily. And it's really fascinating because in endurance, as you would know, Kerry, there are a lot of older people that do really, really well in this space. And it has a lot to do with life experience, but I think it has a lot to do with that sense of presence that they just, and that gratitude that they have throughout their running. And you kind of see, you can see the people at the starting line where you think, oh yeah, it'll be interesting to see how these people go. They're ready to go. But very quickly, a lot of these people that have those harder mindsets, that deep sense of self-judgment, and sort of what I was speaking to is like, a sense of inadequacy, and I have to prove myself in all of this. Life will present you with circumstances to reveal where you're not free. And sometimes it will come up and it will break you down. So you realize this isn't, pushing through and having that warrior mindset isn't always necessary in life.
yes. I know, and I'm sure you get asked this question a lot, but people always will ask me, like, Carrie, why are you doing that? Why
Yeah.
are you doing an Ironman? That seems crazy. It's going to be, 14, 15 hours. But connecting back to what you said earlier on your purpose and what fulfills you. For me, I've always loved a goal. I always love setting a goal. I always loved getting out of my comfort zone, trying new things, like feeling like, what if I can't, and then finding a way to. And then also just the level of, I love drive and dedication and a plan. So, for me, it coming out of the, well, I don't even know if we can say that, but post pandemic, I really felt like a lot of my habits were stagnant and I wasn't sure where I wanted to go. And that fulfills this. So working towards a longer term goal really has satisfied that. What is next for you?
In terms of endurance?
Yeah.
Um, well, it's been really difficult here. So I had a 100-kilometer run coming up. Actually, it was probably meant to be about now, but it's been postponed because people are in lockdown in the state I was meant to go to in Australia. So that's been really unfortunate. I think a lot of us have been kind of struggling. I'm sure you can relate over in America with, having these goals, but particularly in relation to endurance, it's actually really difficult because it's months and months of strict planning and habits every single day for you to just kind of fall short and things be cancelled or postponed. So that's been really interesting. So they have postponed that for in about a month. So I'll see how I go with that. I also have a multi-stage run planned for March next year in Sri Lanka, which will be amazing. But again, that was postponed. I was meant to do that this year and last year. And I was also meant to run in Jordan, which has been postponed. So, it's a little difficult at the moment, but and I guess in saying that, I've really used the opportunity of COVID and things not happening to give myself some space and some peace and some healing. And even I knew that my upcoming run was going to be postponed. So I actually had 5 weeks off running. I did beautiful walks on the beach. I was still getting out and being active, but just really getting in touch with myself, because I think particularly with these, type A achievers, we can really, we love that sense of having goals and systems in place, but we sometimes forget about the journey, and we sometimes forget about really truly connecting with our day to day because we're constantly focused on what is in front of us. So I've really used this as an opportunity to be, again, the word presence will come up a lot with me, but to be present and to connect with myself. And I think this is where the transition of, more of a softer approach is coming in as well. Because it's like, oh, hey, I haven't seen you in a while because you've been so busy, running and planning and training and all these things and working and entrepreneur and all these things, that it's been really lovely. So, I think that's a lesson in itself that, when we talk about mindset and being in these challenging times of COVID is, how can I make this the best for me, instead of complaining that I'm not able to do what I normally would do. Well, maybe this is life telling you to try something different.
That's great. Yes. And I loved when you talked about the corporate Australia, but the corporate world as a global world, we all have to find space to recover. And, for some it is seasons, but for others it's, what am I going to do differently to ensure that I am staying present, that I am finding the space? And, there's so many opportunities. One of the areas that really does help focus people is to find a coach. And so, how can listeners best reach out and connect with you?
So I have a website called jennah-louise.com.au, which is JENNAHLOUISE, or my Instagram is at Jennah-Louise. They're probably the two best places. I'm also on LinkedIn as Jennah-Louise Salked. But yeah, definitely feel free to reach out, even if it's relation to coaching or just listening to this podcast and having some thoughts and reflections on it. Absolutely. I love hearing those. I love connecting with new people. So certainly reach out.
Wonderful. And we'll put the notes with your links in the show
Beautiful.
notes. It's always a pleasure. I can't wait to find out what we're going to do next, maybe
Mm-hmm.
together in the next,
I love that idea.
yeah, the next year or two. When you said Sri Lanka, I'm like, March, okay.
Yeah.
You
Come
never know.
along.
I
It's hot
know.
there.
Yeah. So I was in Australia twice in 2019, so I'll have to put that also on the plans. We could do a nice, beautiful beach walk together.
That would be wonderful. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, thanks so much, Jennah-Louise. You are a
Thanks so much for
beautiful
having me,
soul.
Carrie. So are
Thank you.
you. Thank you. See you.